So whenever you're navigating life and you're inclined to feel frustrated by the state of affairs in the world, whether locally or universally, if you will, a really good parable to meditate upon deeply is this one. So Gospel of Luke, the parable of the persistent widow. So Jesus tells a story about this judge who is basically godless and mean, and he basically gives in to this widow. It's not because he's good, it's not because he likes the widow, but because she is persistent. She just keeps on coming. And the Lord says, in a similar way, when you look at the relationship between God and his people, God will quickly grant justice to his chosen ones who pray to him day and night. And then he ends with this really cryptic rhetorical question. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Now, a couple of observations right off the hop. When you read the passage in its entirety, clearly the Lord is talking about the final judgment. So when he talks about bringing about this definitive period of justice and reconciliation, he's not talking about bringing about these things in the context of the pilgrim journey. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the pilgrim journey. He's talking about bringing about this definitive period of everlasting justice and peace in the context of the final judgment, the end times. That's the time when every tear will be wiped away, and the Lord will bring about a new heaven and new earth. Now, the second thing, just going back to this question, again, this question about faith. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on this earth? Is a rhetorical question. And the implied answer is no. And you know that because of what Jesus says elsewhere in the gospel. So, in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, he says, before the Son of Man comes, there will be this period of great tribulation. Wickedness will multiply, and the hearts of many people will grow cold. So what the Lord is doing, he's tapping into this long-standing prophecy you find up and down the Old Testament, which was articulated on the lips of many Old Testament prophets, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Micah, whatever the case may be. Yes, salvation will come. Redemption will come. That will happen. This extended period of justice and peace and reconciliation. But not before this long period of division and strife and conflict, including this great period of apostasy. Many people will fall away from God. Many people will lose their faith. And it gives us a certain clarity in terms of what God expects of us. So it's not simply pray. It's not simply keep up your prayers. It's not simply pray always. Pray for what? In the context of the gospel, pray specifically that you might endure to the end. Pray that you might not lose faith in the midst of this great apostasy when so many people will fall away from Christ. No small thing. There's this recurring temptation always for all of us to give into a certain victim mentality. And you see this up and down the gospel. Think about the disciples in that rickety boat in the midst of that storm. Lord, don't you care that we are perishing? Or think about Martha in the context of that Martha-Mary story. Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Both those particular situations display a certain spiritual problem. I'm falling out of right relationship with God. I'm looking at the difficulty of my situation, the difficulty of my life, and I tell myself, well, gosh, because the situation is difficult and painful and confusing, therefore, God does not love me. I'm all alone, and all depends on me. Tim Glenkowski talks about this. He says, basically, whenever we give into a certain kind of victim mentality or a certain kind of orphan identity where I'm separated from the Lord or I think that God is an absentee father, the work suffers. The work is not as fruitful as it should be. And more to the point, I step out of what God is trying to do in and through the thing he calls me to actually do in the context of my work, in the context of my vocation, because I'm looking at my life as something to simply endure or get through, as opposed to something which is meaningful, as opposed to something which is purposeful, something which is meant to bring me closer to Christ and to make me holy. The sweet spot is to learn to look at things from God's perspective. And again, Tim Glenkowski talks about this. When you look at what God asks you to do in terms of your work and your vocation, you got to recognize that even though God is certainly interested in the success of the work of our hands, and even though God is certainly interested in the mission of the church, primarily, He's interested in you. He's interested in your life. And he's pursuing your heart. Once you have clarity about that, the whole thing kind of comes alive. The work is still the work. Suffering is still suffering. The cross remains the cross. But somehow I acquire a new freedom in the midst of this because I realize, in retrospect, everything has meaning and everything has purpose. And God is using everything, my prayers, my works, my joys, and my sufferings, to sanctify my life and to sanctify the world through that same life. One final example on with this. So as you know, my mom is my favorite person in the entire world. No secret there. And when my mom was young, when she was 6 or 7 years old, she almost died because of kidney problems. And because of some miracle, through the intervention of a priest, she came back to life. So it worked out for me. But when she got older, her kidneys failed. And so she was put on dialysis. And so basically, when you're on dialysis, you gotta be hooked up to a machine which purifies your blood. 3 days a week, 4 hours each time. And she did that for years. And then finally she got a transplant. And that gave her a certain freedom to live and to travel. And so many of you know here at the parish, my mom would visit 2-3 times a year. She always enjoyed coming here, and everyone was always really gracious to her, so we both really appreciated that. After my mom's last visit here, her kidneys failed again. So she's back on dialysis. And things are different. Like when I talk to her, like she's so weak. She struggles to walk around even her own place. Even when you talk to her on the phone, she's so tired. So I don't think she's ever going to come back here ever again. And we were talking about that a bunch of times last week. But we had a really important conversation on Thursday. And I was just throwing out ideas. And I said, Mom, what if I could talk to the bishop and ask to be transferred to be a priest in Vancouver so I could be with you and take care of you? And my mom said, well, Rick, she calls me Rick. She said, I love you very much. And yeah, it'd be great to have you here in Vancouver for us to be together. But it doesn't feel right. I think you're called to be a priest in Toronto. I think that's God's mission for you. And whatever you do, don't let Mom get in the way of God's mission for you. It's kind of what I was already thinking, so it was neat that she said that. So it seemed right, but at the same time, it's my mom, right? So it was still kind of unsettled in my heart. That's the conversation we had 2 days ago, on Thursday. Fast forward to Friday, the very next day, I had this appointment with this young man. He doesn't live around here. He gave me permission to tell this story. We connected through social media. He follows Catholic Latte, he's a fan, and so he said, can I meet with you? Sure. And so he came over and we had this talk. And what happened was, his mother died this past August. And he was sharing with me all these beautiful memories of his time with his mom, including this conversation he had with her a long time ago. And basically what he said to her was, Mom, I could move. I could move overseas to be closer to you. Dad's passed away. I love you, obviously. We're really close. I could move to where you are so we could be together. And basically what she said was, son, I love you very much. And It would be great if you were here. But you have a daughter now. And you're a father. And your calling and your vocation is to be a father to your daughter in North America. So I give you permission to fully give yourself to this vocation, to be a father to your daughter and a father to your child. And don't you worry about me. And he's telling this story, and he's crying, and I am bawling my eyes out. I mean, are you kidding me? This is like the next day after I talked to my mom. And like, never mind the parallel between his situation and my situation. I felt like God was giving me a chance to talk to my future self. You gotta realize this guy's mom has already died. So I felt like I was talking to my future self, and my future self was saying to me, look, I made this decision a long time ago to not move, to be with my mother, and now she's dead. And can you look me in the eye and tell me that I made the right decision? And I'm like, gosh, yeah. Yeah, you did. You did. It's painful, but you did. I think a lot of times when we find ourselves in situations where it's difficult and you know what the Lord wants you to do, it's hard because you can only see what you see. It's the nature of the human condition. I can only see what I see. I can only know what I know, and I can't see what I can't see. I can't know what I can't know. I see me, I see my mom, I see our relationship. I know we love each other so much, but I don't see, I can't see how people's lives will be changed if I stay as a priest in Toronto here. And I don't know how hearts will be changed. Their hearts and my heart as well, by being a priest in relationship with them. But God sees. God always sees. And the thing about the final judgment, that's when everyone will see. Everyone will see that, my goodness, God is so good. He was always sovereign. He was always in control. And his plan was always perfect. The challenge for each one of us now, though, is to believe in that and to lean into that. To live as if everything that God says and everything he promises is actually true. To live by faith and not by sight.